this contestant going for is for the WWE Championship.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Welcome to Around the Turnbuckle. I'm Big Al. Conspicuous by his absence again is the professor, but we won't get into that. But I do have the brothers Gray, Salem, and Damien. What's up, guys?
Hey, another beautiful evening. How you doing, man?
I'm having a blast. I am. And those who know me know why. But we won't get into that because I'll piss some people off. There's a lot of haters out there. But there was a certain game this past week on Sunday that I've been, it's pretty sad that a man's life, a grown man's life, is based on what happens in a football game. But, I've been riding that for a week. All right. But, we won't get into that. Anyway. How you guys been? It's been a minute. Like, we get in touch with you. We usually talk to you every 6 months to a year. I think it's been about a year. So a lot's happened in this year. So talk about this past year. Yeah, man. Talk about this past year. Some of the stuff that you've experienced. Like, go ahead. I'm done talking.
So we had, I guess, 3 pretty influential trips for us last year that kind of were our bookmark moments of the year. And the first one, we got a chance to go down to Orlando, Florida, and we wrestled for WWC Florida. Yep. And that was to experience their culture of wrestling, I almost want to say vuvuzelas, but the horns, the rattlers, the shakers, like being in that ring in that moment where the whole crowd is going wild, like that was a level of noise that I haven't felt, like, because you could feel the passion, like heat was in the air, like they were in love with it, So that was one of the most, I guess, like beautiful, and it was a great way to start our year, to be able to open our eyes to, something that's very Americanized, but still its very own wrestle culture out there.
Yeah.
So, and then after that, like a few weeks after that, we went down to Sydney. We got to wrestle a couple of matches in Sydney, Australia, which was awesome. It was definitely one of those right place, right time. Met an Australian wrestler while he was doing his American tour. Yeah. Stayed in contact with him. Great guy by the name of Goran. Helped us catch one booking out there. We cold called, caught another booking, and did what we do.
And so we got to, on our second show out there, It was the Wrestle Strong, right? Yeah, Wrestle Strong Dojo. We're right next to Cheeseburgers Dojo up here too. So
Worldwide Dojo and Wrestle Strong Dojo.
And we're like, which one took you around the world? We're like,
the Dojo.
The Wrestle.
The Dojo.
So yeah, and then we met them. We met Dean and Lisa out there, and we got a chance to wrestle Dean in the main event of his promotion and put on a 35-minute, like, longer than we ever get in America, like, to be treated on that level, and for the company to be willing to invest its time and energy in us for that match. And then we went in, we did, what we could do. We did our thing. We were the brothers Gray through and through. And then they offered us an opportunity to join them in Japan. And so we went out to FTO, which is Fighting Team Oida, down in the southern portion of Japan for a tag team tournament. And it was our goal, if you guys, all viewers of the podcast want to, zoom back to the first time we were here, our goal in wrestling was always to go to Japan. It was to be able to be recognized by an Japanese audience, that business promoter, like, for them to look at what we do as an art and go, hey man, I want to put that on for my audience. I want my people in my portion of the world to be able to experience what you're doing live, because I'm enjoying it and I want them to enjoy it too. So it was a very validating experience, but it was one of those moments where it's like you're at a campfire and you finally get the campfire going, right? It's like,
Right.
all right, perfect. Man, we got the fire. Oh, right. Well, we got the fire going, but now are we going to get beans? We going, what are we going to get next? We going to get marshmallows. We go like, how are we going to use this? So it lit the fire, but then, while we're out there, we really got a chance to sit back and go like, well, how are we going to use this experience? If we're out in Japan and we're going to be out there, like, how do we make the most of it? And we got the ability to do our overall dream, which was to wrestle at Kurikan Hall. And we were opening match Kurikan Hall for Big Japan Pro Wrestling. And it
JW.
Yes, it was everything that you bleed for. It's every reason you sweat for. It was every reason you do the crunches, the squats, the push-ups. You get stiffed in the ring. You leave bloody. You leave underpaid. You leave underhappy. It's for the moment where we're sitting on the apron and we're looking around at those seats and we're looking around at that hall and the banners of all the other wrestlers, and we're looking around and we're just like, man, we're here. And, we're in Gorilla, we're backstage, we're walking up and down the hallways, and we're like, man, like, who else was in this hallway? Like,
yeah,
everyone was in this hallway.
Hogan wrestled in this building, type of stuff, like going all the way back.
Yeah.
Here, or recently, the Bullet Club's been tearing that building up for the last 6
Bullet
years.
Club. Yep.
And it was awesome.
So
Professor says, sorry guys, technical difficulties, family dramas. That's amazing though, and I agree with him. Because the last time we guys talked to you, that's all you guys talked about was expanding your wings. I mean, outside of America, especially, and it's awesome. It's awesome. All Australia, Japan. Damn. I mean, now, so talk about that now, using these experiences and, how are you going to use these experiences, especially in Japan?
So we'll give you the preview on some information. We're actually going to be returning back to Japan this year.
Ooh.
So we went out there, we did our best brothers Gray best, and we put that foot forward. And we're going to be returning back with Big Japan in November. So we're beyond incredibly excited. We're excited to get a full run with them and experience their style of wrestling and, really embed ourselves into them and not just the trip.
Yeah.
So we'll be doing that later this year. But in what we've taken back from our first trip out there is how much receptive we are to the audience. And because sometimes you get in there, and whether it's 5 or 500, you can catch yourself sometimes in autopilot or just moving through the motions and doing what you got to do out there. And there were moments out there where you're so exposed because of the lack of noise that when it does happen and you do feel that engagement, it makes you want to relish in it more. It makes you want to earn it more. It makes you want to sit in that moment longer and steep it better. So it allowed us to come back to America and the crowds are hot here. We're healing it up. We're getting cursed at, and now when we do want to do something that's, grandiose, we can take that moment and be like, hey man, you can boo us, but in the building, you're still going to appreciate how cool this was. And like, now we can mentally take a moment and be like, man, is this a moment where I'm just in the match going by the paces, or is this a moment where I'm trying to make a moment for everybody in the arena right now? So
who were the hotter crowds, Australia or Japan?
Different kind of hot. Just how the Japanese watch and digest wrestling, it's a different ball game. Australian is their crowd is much more Western. A lot more jeering back and forth with the crowd, a lot more traditional face and heel dynamics in the matches. Japan, it's much more sporty. And then they like seeing, not spot fest, but like big moments in the match hit differently with them because they're taking it all in and they're quiet while doing it. They're respectful to the craft that's being performed. So they're hot, just different. Because when you do get a Japanese crowd to pop, oh man, and you earned it. It's not just someone sitting in the crowd drunk because they've been yelling.
Right.
You genuinely know this thing here made them feel something.
That is cool.
Silent the whole other time.
That's awesome. But like, I get it. Like I could see Australian crowds, and haven't seen live events in Australia now. That even WWE has been there. Seeing how they react, You know, they like to they like to kind of take over the show. They like to do their chants. They like to just be part of the show. Whereas, like you said, the Japanese crowds watching Japanese wrestling over the years, you they want more spectacle. Like they
Mhm.
want something crazy to happen, and like and they react to it.
Yep.
You know, they're quiet, sitting on their hands, and then all of a sudden, when something happens, ugh, you know, it's like somebody scored a goal at an NHL game. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, that eruption, that like that immediate moment, we had it for us where our opening move where we got our moment in Kurikan Hall was just a standard thing for us. It's our double drop kick. And so we jump up, we hit the drop kick, and as we go to hit our pose, the crowd goes wild. And we're like, yeah, man, it's not often that they see, 6'4" and 6'5" jump, and we jump at the same moment, and we land at the same time. Like it's in unison. It looks like we're Olympic divers because we trained together, elbow by elbow, our whole way through this. So, and then we got up and we sat in that moment, and like we've had the crowd here in America be like, oh, that was crazy. But that moment where the whole arena erupted and we were like, on a drop, like, damn, like, all right, cool. Like that must have, all right, that was cool. Like, dude, yeah, awesome. Let's go. Like, and then it as a performer in the ring, knowing that you had earned that more genuinely, like it fired that gear up for the rest of the match. It made us want to just keep like, all right, man, we have him here. So now, like, we can't lose him here. So let's keep hot potato in this, man. Let's keep this energy moving. And that's definitely was one of the best moments for us to have sat through and lived through to be able to experience firsthand.
That's awesome. Is there a major difference, back in, backstage or in Gorilla between like an Australian promoter and a Japanese promoter? Like, is there a major difference, or is it all the same? Kind of the same, but I mean, you might have a language barrier in Japan, but you know what I mean?
They're similar. It's the language barrier is definitely there, but you'll find either other gaijin out there that are more fluent than you. They can help you on your way. Like we met, and Dale Patrick. We had Baka Gaijin. Like literally strap the backpack on us and go, let's go, kids. So so we had like you'll find those moments, but in Japan, it was clear and evident from the second we walked into the arena that day that this is a business. This isn't a wrestling show. This isn't, halftime at a drunk bar. Like this is there were the management there were all in suits, and there was a team, and they were making decisions as a team because they like that's how many people are invested in the company. Wow. And so when you were getting in, and you even where we work here, where we've been on TV here, we've been on other live streaming services, and we've sat through production meetings and all that, like out there where you're getting your roster breakdown, essentially like, hey man, if you have a question, you need to ask him. Hey man, if you need to work on at the end of the match, your promo, that's your guy in this location. Like our day was planned out very much like you'd be in an office building and say like, hey man, like this is your lunch break. At this time, I need you guys here for these photos. At this time, we need you doing this. So we got to the arena and we were like, all right, they ran us for a day, and it felt so crisp and clean, which was why like even not being able to speak their language, we went out on match one going like, I know exactly what they want out of us, how long they want out of us out there, where they want us at the end of this. Like we got all of the beats because of how diligent they were. And it wasn't just because of us. They did it across the board. It's a company-wide thing out there. And it was across Big Japan and FTO. So that's how their culture is out there for the wrestling business. We're out here in America, things can get pretty carny. You can, end up wrestling in a field in front of 4 people, and you're like, what did I agree to? And you're like, I'm not Googling towns, like, but it
you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, 100%. Like shit, we did. There's no two ways about it. Like everyone has to go through those moments, but going through that, like I said, that 5 makes that 500 feel so sweet. And you're like, man, like we're making a tag in the ring and be like, hey man, remember when we did this in the field? But actually, let's do that move. Let's go for it. Let's see how that feels. Like, and so that was yeah.
Still like hasn't. It's like there's been moments where it's set in since we've been home, but it was like such a dream in the moment that it like want more like that. Just wrestling there became like its own miniature addiction kind of thing. Yeah, like I remember when we landed at home we landed in Newark, and we heard someone lay on the horn for a minute, which just isn't a thing. I think we heard like 6 car horns outside of the ambulances while we were in Japan. And
It was
we weren't
enough
even-
to count.
We weren't even out of the airport, and we're like, can we go back?
Yeah.
It's just everything there was so nice. The wrestling was nice. The fans were nice. Like, we got recognized in a train station on the other side of Tokyo the night after a match, which is crazy when you know how many people live there.
Right.
That someone noticed us.
Oh
Like
yeah, insane. Thundercat Greg's here. Hell yeah, guys! Around the turnbuckle, we did the same thing when I did a TV taping for Main Event Wrestling with Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson, and then they ran a small show in Southwest Georgia, and it ran similarly.
Mm-hmm. People who, and we're nowhere near that mountaintop like they are, but once you get to that mountaintop, everything kind of gets ran at a very matter-of-fact business way. And when you see it for the first time, you're like, oh, why is it?
You're like, I thought that's how this was supposed to be going, and yeah, it is. But that's also why companies become successful, is because they treat it like a business. And if you're gonna, like, when you treat your show like a business, it becomes successful like a business. And that's definitely something we saw. And when one of those notations you take when you go, hey man, in X amount of years, whenever X happens, when we gotta hang up the boots and we eventually get old and start the show and start our own promotion in school, as all of the retirees do, like, remember these notes. Like, what were things that changed our view when we were in the indies, and be that change, so that when we're constantly in this business, this career, we're making it better for the next guys to come in, the next guys to lace up.
It's great to hear you say that, man. But I know the dream is still there. I know the dream is still,
absolutely.
the fire's
We're still young.
there.
We're still young. Don't let the beards fool you.
We mentioned Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson in that last comment there. They just got released by the WWE very recently. So I mean, they're gonna go. What are they gonna do?
Indie wrestling too, or wrestling in the world, is with the power of fans and the internet, you never know what could happen.
Right.
So, like,
and what are they gonna do? They're probably gonna go back to Japan. They're gonna bring back to Japan, or they're gonna be, touring around. I mean, they're not gonna stop wrestling.
Right.
We
work at a couple places that could use, or could they'd fit right in on the roster. So you never know. That's the fun part about wrestling. You never know.
It's definitely not the same as being on a random small town wrestling show where people just show up and get booked. Right.
Oh,
yeah.
I would love to wrestle in Japan. Well, get your ass over there, Greg. You ain't getting any younger.
If any wrestler has an opportunity to do it, do it.
Absolutely.
100% do it.
Traveling for wrestling it's not just in a 3-hour bubble. It's not at 2 towns over or your next closest promotion.
Right.
Like, when they talk about when you got to leg the miles, like, we just drove up from Atlanta last weekend. Yeah. We drove down on Friday, worked on Saturday, drove up Saturday night because the Super Bowl was on Sunday.
Right.
Like, and that's what it takes when you gotta. Those are those moments where you look at this and you're like, man, this isn't a hobby for me anymore. This is our job. This is our career. And if we got to go to Atlanta this weekend, then hey, man, hop in the rental car. We're going to Atlanta this weekend.
Are you gonna be down my way in early March for PPW?
Not
No.
Right now, no.
No, okay. Because I saw I saw a poster over in the store across the street from my house here for Slatington. But it's been a minute since you guys. When was the last time you guys wrestled there?
Last month.
You were there last month.
We wrestled something.
Yeah.
Okay. So you got back from Japan, and when you did, so then what? I mean, you just had you were booked up, or like what was going on there?
A couple of promotions, a couple of our older promotions reached back out, and the communication started flowing again. We're back at Battlefield. We're their tag champions now. We wrestle at 1CW again, which was, one of our original stomping grounds, as you remember.
That's where I debuted.
Yep.
So we're back there next weekend to do I think they said it's like a tag team tournament kind of thing.
That's kind of our gimmick.
Yeah,
I'm fine with running that for the year too. Promoters, bookers, if you've got a tag team tournament, you're running for the year, give us a holler. It's in our wheelhouse. It's kind of what we go for.
Yeah, and I seriously think that there is a lack of tag teams out there that stick together as long as you guys have. And I get it, you guys are brothers, and that helps. But and you guys are pursuing this dream together. But I tell you, A lot of times tag teams start off in the business together. Maybe they're together, a few years, and then they kind of go their separate ways. Or maybe one shines a little bit brighter than the other one, and they realize that early on. But if you look, even at the highest level, even at WWE, I mean, who are the major tag teams? Okay, there's no more like
Brothers or families.
right.
Mhm.
The Usos are not a thing anymore. New Day's not really a thing anymore. They're, you know what I'm saying? The tag team champions are DIY, and in
Mhm.
my mind, I think it's just because they don't have nothing else to do with those two.
Mhm.
They got rid of the Authors of Pain. They got rid of Gallows and Anderson.
They got rid of
I
the
guess
hurt
they're
people.
starting to now. Maybe they're starting to now push the Street Profits. But
Mhm.
Right. Yeah.
it's not like back in the day where you had the Hart Foundation, the British Bulldogs,
Mhm.
Demolition. You had a dozen tag teams that
Right.
were all going for the tag team
Yep.
championships. So I mean, and in and in AEW too, and in TNA too, you don't have this influx of tag team wrestling. It seems to be making a comeback under these new regimes, such as Triple H and etc.
Right. And I feel like there's also it's how it's done too. 'Cause there was a while where tag team wrestling became, well, there's four of us and we have this amount of time, so let's just go out there and do what we want to do. And we lost track of like what the storytelling moment is.
Right.
And, getting into the business, especially in the electronic age, there's so many seminars and interviews online about just the fundamentals of being inside of the ring. And one of the ones that Damien and I really took to heart was like the story of a tag team match. And like, what is the purpose of what we're out here for? Like, what is the crowd supposed to get out of this? What is the contest they're trying to see out of this? Is if we just go out there and say we got 10 minutes, let's go do flip flap and boom, and then at the end of it, I'm gonna roll you up, and then we're gonna all go drink beers at the end of the day. Like the crowd's gonna not enjoy that. So like
Right.
learning what the purpose of that is, and then now we're starting to see, like you're saying, the storytelling of these teams and like they're credible teams coming back up. It's not just how long did we see? Well, this guy's feuding with this guy, so we're gonna team them together and they're gonna win the belts because that's comedy. And now we're gonna see how they work together. And then as like biological brothers, you look at that and you're like, if you guys are feuding with each other, we should wipe the floor with you. Like you guys aren't paying attention to us at all. And
Right.
like, this is our job. This is what we do is this match. So treat me on the same level as the singles world champion. Just because I don't focus on singles wrestling doesn't mean the tag team wrestling is any lesser or worse. I prefer to beat somebody's ass with my brother.
Yes.
Sue me.
Damien, you agree with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's been interesting trying to find like film for tag team wrestling.
Yeah.
Because like for like the more recent-ish era, really has been, the Usos and New Day at the top of the game. Yes, there's been amazing tag teams coming and going and ebbing and flowing, and those running the indie circuit too. But like at that level, it's only been them. But like back in the day, it was half the roster was connected to somebody somehow.
Right. It just is a different time.
Mhm.
I mean, even during the Attitude Era, there was great tag teams. But like I said, I always look back at like some of my favorite tag team matches were, ones that weren't necessarily for the tag team championships. I used to like the Rockers versus the Orient Express. That was always pretty good.
Yep.
I used to like whenever the British Bulldogs wrestled, I paid attention. Like I was a big mark for the British Bulldogs back in the day, for whether they were champs or not. But I mean, there was always big champions. I'll go back as far. I'll age myself, and I'll go back as far as Barry Windham and Mike Rotunda, and when they had a feud with Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov.
Oh wow.
I mean, there was that that's how old I am. But Attitude Era is mostly like the New Age Outlaws and anybody who came in their path.
Right.
And then you get into
Dudleys,
and you get into
Christian
and you get into
parties.
modern days, and I swear over the last 20 years, it's been either the Usos and the New Day. So then fast forward to when all that gets broken up, and now you have, the past couple of years, they've been trying to find that. I think they've been trying to find Triple H has been trying to find tag teams. That's why they hired the Motor City Machine Guns, because they're amazing. I mean,
That's what we grew up on.
Yeah.
Living in
Yeah.
Orlando, Motor City Machine Gun, Team 3D, Beer Money. Those were our tag
yeah,
teams.
I mean, yeah. Let us mention the Dudley Boys, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Recall reviews. Never been a fan of tag team matches. I look to find teams and matches that make me care about the story and people involved to hook me, and I want teams to make me care. Yeah, that's coming from somebody who, is used to what's been happening in the last 10 years
yeah.
versus what used to happen. Like tag teams used to matter
Yep.
when they used to have big. I mean, remember the promos from like the Road Warriors
Mhm.
or Jim Cornette and the Midnight Express
Oh
or
yeah.
the Rock and Roll Express or the Four Horsemen, whatever. Like that. That's when tag team wrestling mattered a little bit more than it does now. And I hope seeing this influx of young talent like yourselves and like some others that are weaving their way that we know that are weaving their way through Japan and other places to try to make get their names out there. I hope that the future looks bright with the Brothers Gray, with some of these other tag teams that we've talked to, because man, what a thrill it would be for me. I used to know these guys once. When I watch, I turn on my TV. You guys are wrestling on TV. Like I'll lose my mind. Speaking of that, is there a way we can see any of your matches that were either at Japan or Australia?
Our YouTube page, which is the Brothers Gray, we should be the first thing that pops up. I believe we
I'm
have.
checking it out. I'm checking it out.
Yeah, I was like, we should
I
have.
know our Big Japan matches were streamed by Big Japan, but it's in the show. So
Okay.
the Torque and Hall one's easy to find because we opened, so it's the beginning of the show. But the second match we did right before we left, it was in we were like fourth or fifth on the card. So there's some hyper scrubbing that has to happen to find us.
Yeah.
But they both of the Japan ones are on Big Japan's page because their copyright rules with us publicly distributing it's different. And
I believe the Australian. I know Australian Wrestling Entertainment is on their YouTube page.
Yeah, but it's in two parts, which I've never seen
Yeah.
before. But
Which, speaking of tag team wrestling, oh man, going to film for tag team wrestling and trying to figure out the heat, and you're like, well, where is it? And realizing that we're the commercial break, and we're like, oh, love. That's why I never got it. They would
But
just come back and be like, oh, he's gonna hit something, and then 2 minutes later, got him in a chin lock. You're like, what happened to?
As a fan, I looked forward to tag team matches though. Like if I was going to a live event when I was a kid, whether it be WWE or whatever, and now as an adult when I go to these independent matches, I look forward to a tag team match only because there's almost automatic drama there. You're gonna have automatic drama, right? The heels are gonna beat the crap out of one of the faces. You're gonna have that hot tag, but the crowd seems to be more into it, or they seem to like cheer more, or they seem to like pound their fists and clap their hands, trying to get the guy to get the tag or something like that. So there's always seems to be more drama involved, which is kind of not fair when you're having one on one because you got to make that yourself. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, but the more interesting part is because everybody knows the more or less the story beats of the tag match.
Mm-hmm.
Even a casual fan knows the term hot tag, which makes it a little bit harder for us to subvert expectations, as opposed to a singles match that has hundreds of years of playbook to go by that
Right.
they can pick and pull from. Us, what we're about to do. We just have to make it a little different and a little more entertaining, and hopefully you want to see us do it even more different next month.
Yeah. Tag team championship matches were like co-main events at pay-per-views back in the day. That's right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's right. I
And
mean, you know,
in the indie scene, at least up where we're at, it's cool because it seems like there's a resurgence in tag wrestling, both with some veteran teams like South Philly's Finest, who've been a team for a minute, and the rep and stuff like that, and a bunch of new teams coming up like Smash and Burn,
Nice and smooth.
Nice and Smooth, a whole bunch
nice and
of
smooth.
all in this area trying to come up and cut our teeth and make it. Nice and Smooth's been on ROH. Like we're all coming up.
Yeah, they had a Ring of Honor match. That's right.
Yep.
And and they're young and they're hungry. I mean, they could go. I mean, we've had those guys on. We've talked to those guys many times in person, and we, of course, everybody that we've ever talked to here on this thing, like we've wished nothing but the best, and we follow their careers. One team that's come across it, and I know that the last time you guys were on here, we mentioned their names just to see if you've crossed paths with them, and that'd be Dog Nation.
Mhm.
Yep.
Dog Nation, they're doing the same thing you're doing. They went overseas. They went in Europe. They went to Japan, um, and Australia. So they, like I said, they're doing the same thing you're doing, just getting global versus getting going from local to global.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Unless
then
you're
once,
blessed with like a WWE ID or getting contracted or like an NIL kind of deal,
Mhm.
it's just a different route. Current day indie promoted or indie wrestlers.
what do you guys feel about? I've been asking this lately since its inception. What do you guys feel about this WWE ID program? Because there's mixed feelings about it amongst independent wrestlers.
I think it's interesting to have, I guess, a pre-purchase tag when it breaks down to it. It's a little bit different now that they have the TV show that's coming out, the Evolve coming out. Is now it's like, all right, like this essentially is your golden ticket into their indie circuit of
Yeah.
the East. So it's like that now that that's a thing, I agree with the decision, and I think this is awesome. I'm not saying I wouldn't enjoy this. I would 100% be all on board to be on there. But when it was just that they have the first dibs and to buy you out, like they could, say, hey, I want him instead of you guys for any other contract. It makes it interesting because that moment right there, you're no longer an independent contractor.
No.
So what our job is now null and void because you're under a contract, but you're still making the same rate that we are at the same show. But now you also have that, that emblem, that stamp on you. So now you have to be booked and looked at in a certain way. So now promoters got to treat you like X. So what it does is it makes a huge shift in backstage because when that person comes, everyone's like, oh man, like everyone knows he's ID'd or she's ID'd. Now everybody backstage knows whose it is.
Right.
And then they of somebody who was, coming and going once or twice in your company now is at the head front of your poster. And you're like, man, like it would be awesome if he was more over here or they were more over here because then that main front of that poster, that's the billboard spot. That's the marquee. This is our draw right here. And I don't know if the casual fan is coming to a new show because the ID guy is there or the ID girl is there. And it's not affecting draw power yet on our level. So I'm happy for them that they're recognized. That's the biggest thing. Like we're all in this community together. I'm not here to hold back boats. Like we got to sail in one direction. Wind only blows so hard. So if wind's blowing, I want everybody moving at the same rate.
Right.
So I'm happy that people did get that ability. It's just, it's like you said, people are pretty divisive on this, but I'm happier now that they have the show. So it's a little bit more credential based and credibility for us to look at it and be like, all right, well, they also get that once a month on Evolve. So they get that moment. That's that kind of, you get the ID and it goes, hey, you're this person, which we're, doing backstage stuff and we're starting to work our way into helping around with MLW and the extra stuff. And it's the same situation over there. MLW is once a month. But if you get that spot and you become an MLW wrestler, then the rest of the world has to treat you a different way. They got to look at you a different way because that company is up here. And so it's 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other. You can't complain about it because it's across the board. I think this is the first time it's just been so prevalent in front of not only us as other wrestlers, but the general audience because of reporters and news and whatnot.
Yeah, for me, correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't seen a tag team get it yet. It's only been singles, which for us is kind of interesting to watch. Going back to our last conversation of what is modern day tag look like. But for me, like my brother said, it's interesting to bring that backstage conversation to the forefront with the contract situation. I don't exactly know what it's all about because I'm not ID. I don't know what's actually on that paper. I don't. It's all what other news outlets have been telling us, which isn't how to do this. That's not awesome. But it's cool for them, and I'm sure it's cool for the people working them because it's supposed to bring eyes at some level that may not have seen their match at a flea market or wherever they're actually working.
Right.
But like my brother said, any progress for the collective is awesome because maybe there's no IDs for tag teams yet because it's new. But if this is the more direct route with quotes for indie guys to the E, then hey, let it blossom and grow and let the growing pains happen. So when it does become like original NXT and NXT now are not the same beast. WWE ID now and WWE ID in 10 years are not going to be the same beast.
Right. You're right.
Mhm.
You're right. And I like the relationship that they've gotten with TNA.
Mhm. Oh, absolutely.
Because
us
that's
TNA
another way. I mean, that's another avenue that people are exploring.
Mhm.
Right.
So I mean, again, I mean, you've had they've used TNA stars in Royal Rumbles. They've used TNA stars come over to NXT. Jordan Grace is now in NXT.
Yep.
So again, it's exciting to me. Ever since, and when we started this podcast, Keith and I, when we started this podcast, it was during COVID, and it was at a time when wrestling really wasn't doing it for us as far as the WWE goes,
Mhm.
and AEW was just getting going. And so we were excited about that because we were like, okay, cool. This is something different. It's
Mhm.
something not WWE. And
Yeah.
then it was Cody and it was CM Punk and it was Jericho and like all that. So we were like, oh, this is really cool. And then things started to happen, which kind of made us look at AEW differently. And now AEW, man, they're having trouble putting 2,000 people in an arena. You know what I mean? And so, but what drew us back to WWE was Vince out of the picture, Triple H running things, Shawn Michaels running NXT, pretty much DX is running the show
Basically.
because Road
got
Dogg's on
productions
SmackDown.
in SmackDown.
It's ridiculous, right? And
Yeah.
so they've never been hotter. WrestleMania 40 was amazing. I was there. It was exciting. I was there. It was in Philly. I had to be there. And wrestling's never been hotter because whether people want to admit it or not, wrestling's only as hot as the top. If
Mhm.
WWE's hot, the rest of it's hot. Then
Yes.
people get excited for wrestling again. Then they see a poster. Oh, there's a wrestling event in my area. Oh, and then maybe they go buy a ticket. And that's where this relationship came, where we started promoting this kind of stuff and starting to talk to you guys and guys like you who want to break into this business. And it's just been so fun and so exciting. In 5 years, we've been doing this for 5 years now. And it's just fun when we see people succeed. And man, it's amazing. You guys are on the right track. We're talking Australia, talking Japan. You said you're going back to Japan?
Yep.
We're going to hopefully, the date's still got to get ironed out, but it looks like we're going to be out there for a few months.
When?
October, November-ish time frame.
Okay.
Got to get through, because summer is the hot time for indie wrestling in America. So we kind of want to stay here during the summer, get our bookings around, and then when it kind of slows down here, work our way back to Japan.
He's talking to AEW there. So AEW ran before it could walk, and they weren't ready for WWE to change.
Yeah, the E change was definitely something none of us saw.
Nah,
but I think the other thing too is like we talk about it all the time backstage, and like when we're looking at our body of work retrospectively, is at the end of the day we're in wrestling for the story. If we wanted to watch two dudes go in there and beat up each other, we'd watch the UFC. We wanted to watch two dudes go out there and do wrestling. Amateur Greco-Roman wrestling would have a professional league, and we'd have stadiums built for it.
Right.
So what they want to see out of us is the sports entertainment. They want to see the story. And when you got to blend it. And AEW started off with this very sports-heavy approach, and they had some storylines. And then for probably 2 years, I don't know if any of us can, and I'm sure if there's a super hardcore AEW fan that's out there that can absolutely tell you their storyline. But like, I can't name my favorite storyline in the last 3 years. And
other than MJF and Punk, I think was my favorite AEW storyline in their existence.
Right, and that's almost 3 years old now.
Right,
and it's like, man, you guys haven't had a storyline in almost 3 years of that weight and gravitas. Where the Bloodline storyline is almost 4, 5, 6 years old now. If you want to include Roman and Seth into the Bloodline story, we're in a decade. So as a hardcore fan, you're looking at it, and then when the casual fan's like, wait, so they got family beef. Oh, I can get behind this. And you're like, let me explain to you
everybody
this.
can get behind that story at a fundamental level. Oh,
it's crazy.
Brothers argue, and it's like, oh, hold on. This is way more than.
And they just keep bringing family members in, and it just keeps expanding and getting more deep.
Yes, 100%. Especially now because like us and our connection with Alpha Junior, and we've had multiple shows around with Lance, and just seeing family around. Like I remember when we met like Jacob and Lance and Shamluda, and it's just like everything that's happened since we met them, and now it's awesome. I cannot wait for Lance to be on TV at that level. He is gonna kill it. It's gonna be awesome to watch, and it's one of those kind of like you guys. I met him. I know this guy, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's amazing, and that's the point. Like back then, 5 years ago, I barely watched Raw. I barely watched SmackDown. I would watch the PLEs, but I really wouldn't. Like I'd watch the major ones, like Mania and the Royal Rumble. When there was a time 10 years ago where Keith and I and a bunch of others would get together and watch every single pay-per-view.
Yep.
We would never missed them. We never missed them. We just got together and just watched them so we could talk about it during live, right?
Yep.
And then transform back down to now, I can't miss it. Like I want to see what happens next. Like I want to see what happens with the bloodline next. I want to see what happens with Cody as champion. I want to see who wins the elimination chamber. Like they've made me care again.
Yes.
100%.
And that's where AEW, that's their spark they need back. We as the both hardcore and casual audience have to find a reason to care. And like Haley Cameron, the one who's doing the stuff with Mercedes Moné right now. Like with the puppet. Like this is traction.
Yeah.
Like now the company, everybody backstage at AEW's got to understand that like, all right, our eyes are back on them right now because what she's doing is drawing at least in the like online audience. So now 100%, like this is the moment to really lean into telling us the story. Let us get back into why we're wrestling. I don't really care if you're 36-4. Cool. Like, but at the end of the day, like, are you 36-4 because you stand for something, you care about something, and is that something resonatable? Shit, are you a pirate? I don't like it's like collect wins.
Come back.
Like, but give us a reason to care. And like people care. Like he came swinging on a rope, and you were like, I'm excited to see what's about to happen. And
I was into the dust. Like I saw a clip. I don't watch Dynamite like ever, but I saw a clip of a promo between Dustin Rhodes and MJF.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, I like that."
Yeah.
Yes.
Because the back and forth was awesome.
Yes. And MJF, as he says it, is a generational talent on the mic. And Dustin's old school. He is roots. They're mic workers. And so that's got to be awesome. And I was talking about like must-see TV. When we did our Atlanta trip, it wasn't just us. There was 5 wrestlers total. But both going down and coming back, we were fantasy booking like we were in middle school again. Yeah. Wrestlers, people who don't. It was when we came in. It was kind of weird when LA Knights. Yeah, you'd hear it in the locker room, and that's how the vets were like, "Oh, that's how you know he's over," because wrestlers talk about it. Now wrestlers are talking about storylines like fans again, and I think a lot of wrestlers forgot that because and I will too. There'll be months I won't go actually seeing WWE or seeing AEW, but I'm always wanting to be caught up. And it's like, it's just cool to see all the storylines and be a fan again, too.
Apparently, Chris likes TLC matches. WWE used to always have tag team ladder matches, tables, ladders, and chairs. It's time to bring those back in the high-flying tag team matches. Well, the thing is, Chris, you need to have the guys that can do that. They had Edge and Christian and the Hardy Boys and the Dudley Boys, and those matches were great because of those 3 teams. You got to have guys that be able to do that. I don't know if you could still do that with DIY and the Motor City Machine Guns, and that's nothing to say anything against them. I'm just saying I don't know if they've been pushed to that level that those other teams were for fans to care about a ladder match between DIY and Motor City Machine Guns.
Yeah, and you got to remember that, like, especially as fans looking back retrospectively, we remember those moments and those matches for that match in that moment. How amazing that TLC match was for the triple threat. But you got to remember, in order to get to the TLC match, they had to also have a tables match.
Right.
They had a ladders match. They
Right.
had the extreme match. And then before that, they had a whole series where they just wrestled regular tag matches.
Right.
So it was a consequence of the actions of all of them feuding around each other, feuding around. Then the belts got away from them, and then the belts came back into the feud. So now they're all feuding back into it. And then now one got up on one, he jumps the other one. The other team comes up on one. And so it's you, but you got to the story. At the end of it, you were like, the TLC, you were like, dude, someone's got to walk out of this. Like, you have to have a finish here because we're like, this is we're at the mountaintop. I'm looking at the skyline, you know?
Right.
And that's where we got to be at. Because, you know, when TLC was its own pay-per-view, when that showed up on the air, no one was going, dude, 6 matches at TLC, bro. You excited? Like, everyone was like, bro, like, why is everything a gimmick?
I used to like when Money in the Bank
TV.
was. I used to like when Money in the Bank was part of Mania.
Yeah, absolutely. They kick off a Mania was Money in the Bank. Because then that Mania, like the night turnaround where you're like, I don't know who's going to run it on. I'm over here like, I want somebody in the Money in the Bank to win the tag team championships. Like, I want to win it and be like first one and be like, I don't care about singles. Enjoy that, dude. That's your division. Like, I can't be a heavyweight and be like, well, if I trim down, I could really start working in the middleweight division. Like, no, you're a heavyweight, dog.
We'll do that.
Be the best at your division and then go. Like, so. But
Who are some of your over the years? Who are some of your best opponents? And is there teams out there that you've not worked with that you want to work with? Realistically,
absolutely, yeah. I was like, we could fantasy book tag teams against us for the rest of the night.
I'm not talking. I'm not talking I'm not talking the young bucks or something. I'm saying like realistically, like you guys could see yourselves in the ring with somebody that you've not worked with before.
Yeah, I got one. It's a broad scope here, and you know what? If you're watching this, you guys can clip this here. We got the PWI this year, and we looked at the 100 tag teams on that list.
Okay.
And quite frankly, I'm going to be pretty cocky in saying this. I think we had a better year than some people on that list, and I'm down to wrestle them. I want to wrestle them because I want to see what got you on that magazine that we didn't get. So I'm a little salty. Put a little salt on the chip. It's on the shoulder. Like, but that's if you're on that list, you're on my list.
Damn.
Take it as you have it.
Damien, you agree with that or what?
I agree with it. I'm more like I have a list of the PWI, and then I have some lists that I want to do that aren't on PWI like us. Like, I'm very excited to one day wrestle Primal Fear in just a tag match. No trios, just a tag match. Omen and Gabe versus us, and just run that. So hopefully we get that sooner rather than later.
Right.
We just wrestled the Rep, which was awesome. We love wrestling South Philly's finest. Their knowledge is.
They smacked me in the back of the head once. I don't know if I ever told you.
That checks out.
Yeah, that checks a lot. I'm a guardrail wrestler. I stay within.
I was ring announcing that show.
You got in,
and they were wrestling, and who did they wrestle?
Which one did it?
Yeah, the ref said protect yourself at all times. You like
which one did it? Oh man,
Conway. Was it the tall one or the short
Conway? Yeah, Jimmy. Yes, but it was. But they were and guess who did they wrestle that show? Dog Nation. And I mean, they tore the house down. I'm sorry to everybody else that was on that show, but they tore the house down.
Oh yeah, it's like last month that match.
Oh what? No, okay. This was about a year. This was about a year ago at a middle school.
Okay. Yeah, I know that those two had a world title match like last month.
It was down by Norristown.
Gotcha.
And yeah, and I was ring announcing that show, and I got a nice slap in the head by Jimmy. He probably doesn't remember, but whatever. Yeah. He just didn't. I don't know if he didn't like my bald head or whatever it was.
We got a chance to wrestle Dog Nation our first year.
Yeah, I would.
And that was one of those where it's like once you come out of it, you're like, man, I absorbed a book, but I felt like a shelf out there, dog. So.
Yeah, I'd love to run it back with them.
Oh man,
New knowledge we have, and I'm sure the knowledge they have doing their overseas business as well. That would be really fun to do, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a dream, man. I have a daydream right now where you guys are wrestling each other for the tag team championships on NXT.
That'd be crazy.
I mean,
sign me up. Sign me up.
We do look good in black and gold.
Yes,
That's
we do.
always-
damn. I mean, that just flashed before my eyes just now, you know. And NXT's been hotter and hotter and hotter.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
it has been. It's so great to see everything go well.
Yeah,
Like it's
wrestling's in a boom.
yes. I won't even say
The
Renaissance.
talent. What do you guys think of the LFG show, the Legends and Future Greats? Have you
I've
seen
only
that?
seen little
Have you seen
clips
that
of it.
promos?
I've
It's
seen
not on
clips
yet. I mean, it hasn't aired yet, but I've seen just clips and promos of like the Undertaker involved and stuff
Mhm.
like that.
I've seen the promo where they made the guy do it again, and then the second one was way harder than the first one. And I saw the clip with Bubba not shaking a kid's hand and the kid pissing Bubba off for some reason, which
Yeah,
par for
I saw a clip with
Yeah,
Gunther
sounds
yelling
alright.
at some. I saw Gunther yelling at some girl. Like the girl was. He asked her why was she here, and she gave this bubbly, juicy answer or whatever like that. And he said nobody cares.
yeah.
That's not wrong.
Yeah, to be fair, I think like I'm sure everybody who's on that show's got to be a worker at some level and degree. Like
Right,
no one out
yeah.
there is just like, hey,
Green.
Yeah, like,
They're not green.
we saw you at Planet Fitness and those biceps look good, son. Like that doesn't happen in the industry anymore. So unless you're, almost and you're 7 foot something, you're like, come, let me teach you this. But
You don't even have to learn how to bump.
right. So
Well, go ahead.
it happens to all of us where you do work with a veteran who I don't want to say wisens you up, but like it's the moment where you realize that this shit isn't a game and this
Right.
is people's job.
Yeah.
And if I go into Home Depot and I'm like, hey, where are they? He's gonna be like, dude, chill it. What do you need? And I'll tell you where it's at. But like, and that's his job. Like he's here to do a job. And when you realize that being backstage, you got to be professional. And like, I think that's what they're really trying to lean into with these young workers. Is like, man, you have the infinity pool of talent and potential, but like you got to rein in the thing between your ears, because if you can't handle that, how many people have we seen fail out of WCW, TNA, WWE because they couldn't figure this out?
The more I talk to you guys, man, the more I want you guys to make it, because you have it all. You have the ability, you have the look, you have the talent in ring, you have the mindset of never stop learning, and also like you said, picking guys' brains, talking to veterans and stuff like that. You have the mindset of what it takes to make it in this business, but there's 1,000 other people that might have close to that. And it's really, I know it's really hard, but I admire the fact that this goal has been set in front of you. And, God willing, man, I can't, I hope to God that someday you just guys that I used to know. Seriously, you know what I mean? I wish you nothing but the best, man. But, if you could go back, and take your 2025 selves and go back to when you started in this business, what advice would you give yourselves?
Ooh, that's interesting.
I like doing the hard-hitting questions last.
I'll be honest, I wouldn't change anything we've done yet, because the few missteps that we did have taught us a lot early.
Yeah.
And like people we met, people who we thought were our friends that weren't, people been blackballed around us. Like, so we learned that weird part of the business immediately.
Right.
Immediately coming in. And also with us being older, we're not 18-year-old kids straight out of high school doing this. We are a little bit older. Like that also helps. So I don't think I would change anything. And the people who we have met along the way, starting with Miguel from day zero, all the way to Tyson Kidd and Alpha, Goran, who got us to Australia, then Liz and getting us to Japan, and just everything has gone picture perfect.
It's been,
I don't think I'd want to change it.
The dominoes have fallen in a very advantageous way for us. So I think it's definitely like looking back at them to have that conversation would just be like, man, like enjoy the ride. Like we both work shoot jobs that for us in the summer get up to, almost 50-hour work weeks. on
Yeah.
top of the wrestling and the traveling. And so like we come down and at the end of our, our week, we're 89, 90 hours of work. And it's just like,
Right.
hey man, there's going to be moments where you're driving, you're exhausted and you hate it. But like all of those moments make every good moment worth it. So like, just don't get so down on those because like you're gonna have to get those. Like you've never gotten out of a parking lot without a speed bump. Why are you gonna get upset about it now? Like,
Well, guys, I mean, we're almost up with that hour. Is there anything that we have not talked about that you guys would like to talk about before we're done? Anything you guys got coming? Anything you guys got coming up, or you want to promote?
Like I said, we have 1CW this upcoming weekend, followed right behind the Battlefield show. We just won the Battlefield, Battlefield Tag Team Champion, so that's gonna be fun. Our first title defense.
Yep.
After that, we're down in Maryland in Havre de Grace for Federated Wrestling Alliance.
Yep.
And then this month we're off. MLW's off this month.
So I would also say like our goal this year, because like we went to Japan, we set that goal. We every year we try to make a benchmarkable goal. And this year we're really trying to get to like 5 more states. We're trying to get to 5 extra states. We're trying to push our continental borders out here. We're trying to grow our residential audience. So, promoters, bookers, wrestlers who are interested in working with us, reach out. We travel, we fly. We're all good to go. We're rate flexing. We're here to put on a show for people. We're not here to be greedy, money hungry assholes.
I know this guy in Alabama.
See, like we're always open.
That's this guy. That's this guy right here. Look him up.
All right, Mr. Winters.
All right,
Mr. Winters. Yeah, look him up.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right.
So,
he has his own promotion in Alabama.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's definitely where we're planting our flag this year. Is anywhere in America or in our little bubble down here, we want to get to the ends of that bubble.
Especially because we know we do have Japan at the end of the year. We're looking to have fun, wrestle some cool names, and tell some stories. It's not belts are obviously amazing, but we know you can't be a champion everywhere. So
we're trying to showcase our talent and showcase other people with us. We're trying to put in. We want to have that catalog of matches where you can pull it up and be like, oh, which one do I watch?
Everywhere with everyone.
Get what your work is worth.
Absolutely.
100%.
All right, man. Well, listen, guys, I love talking to you guys.
Always
always a pleasure, man. We're gonna come back. I think we're gonna make this a regular February thing with you guys, and we're gonna see where you are in February 2026.
You can always write that Eagles side.
Right.
Oh,
you're
automatically saying they're gonna.
They're gonna be there.
Listen,
I'm saying it now.
As a Raiders fan, the Eagles are going. It's definitely not us. So don't worry.
Listen, I'm a lifetimer. I have 2 Super Bowl appearances and 2 Super Bowl wins in the last 8 years. I'm like, going crazy right now. 3 Super Bowls in the last 8 years that they were in. It's a crazy time for an Eagles fan, but like I lived a lifetime of when they sucked. They sucked in the 80s. They sucked in the 90s. They had good defenses and whatnot. But then you get to like early 2000s with late 90s, early 2000s with Don McNabb, and they started to build up. And then they were in the Super Bowl in 2005. They lost that one. That was the puke game, right? Fast forward to 2018, finally getting it done. So again, I'm riding that high, but yeah, we got to visit with you guys once a year and keep tabs on you guys because you are one of our favorite tag teams that we've had on here, and we appreciate you guys, and we're gonna be keeping tabs. I'm about to go on YouTube and check out some of your matches in Japan if I could find them.
We'll send I'll straight up send you the link.
Send them to me, absolutely. Appreciate it. I appreciate it. Meantime, I want to thank Chris and the professor and Greg Thundercat for chiming in. Greg, book these guys. And another thing too is if you guys are looking for the Brothers Gray, you can find them on all the social media outlets. You can find the Brothers Gray and book them. Just get in touch with them, and I'm sure they'll work something out with you guys, the promoters that watch this show. Also, next week we do not have a guest yet. We had one. They canceled. So if any wrestler, referee, ring announcer, anybody's interested in coming on the show. Next Sunday, rather. I keep saying Saturday. Next Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern, give me a shout. But sometime between now and then, ASAP, because those spots go quick. In the meantime, the professor and I will be at Gauntlet for Glory, SWO Gauntlet for Glory down in Seven Valleys, PA. This coming Saturday, we will be the commentary team for that show. Should be a great show. It's the first ever. Now, listen, Gauntlet for Glory is every year at SWO, but normally they have 20 guys. This year is the first year they're having 30. So a 30-man Gauntlet for Glory Royal Rumble style match where the winner obviously gets a championship match of their choosing down the road. So it's going to be awesome. There's going to be plenty of surprises, obviously, guys that some people might know. So you got to get tickets to that show. That's this Saturday in Seven Valleys, PA. Doors open at 6 o'clock for that Gauntlet for Glory. In the meantime, for the professor who is not here, but we'll see him next week, and the Brothers Gray, I'm Big Al, and this was Around the Turnbuckle. We'll see you guys next time.
You think you know me?
Oh, yeah! If you smile!
Calculations are correct.